What's up, you guys, and welcome back to my channel. First off, I want to say a massive thank you to you guys for all of the suggestions that you left on last week's video for Halloween ideas and topics. I'm so excited. You guys left some of the best suggestions, things I never would have thought of, and I really hope I can bring a lot of those suggestions to life for you guys and do something a little bit different. But if you want to leave your own suggestion, definitely go. First of all, check out the Sofia Juarez video. It's so incredibly important we get that information out there. And B, that's where I'm going to be taking all of my ideas from, is that comment section, so I don't have to look like a million different places. Well, that and the thread about it on Twitter. And that's pretty much it. So now I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into the video. But I wanted to thank you guys because you left so many great suggestions. So today we are talking about Chelsea Cobo. This is one that's been very, very highly suggested from a lot of people. But right now, this case really needs your help pretty much more than ever, and I will get more into detail into that at the very end of the video. So watch completely through because I have something very, very important to say. Chelsea was 22 years old when she went missing from Brooklyn, New York on May 6th, 2016. Now, these dates are kind of all across the board, generally over the entire internet, and you will see why in a little bit. But the general consensus is that the last time she was seen by anyone that knew her and actually cared about her was on May 6th, 2016. So Chelsea's parents struggled with mental health pretty badly. So at only 13 months, she ended up being adopted by her biological aunt. Now, I don't know much at all about Chelsea. I don't know much about her life. I don't know who she really was as a person because there just hasn't been a lot of coverage on her at all. Pretty much none. I think I maybe saw 2 actual news sites covering her, but the rest were more so blogs, which is why, again, I have something huge to talk to you about at the end of this video. So I don't know much about her, and that bothers me because I feel like I try really hard to emphasize who the person was before I get into this, but pretty much the only thing I know is that she was a mom. She had a 10-month-old little boy when she disappeared, and she loved him so much. She took pictures of him every day and videos of him every day, and he was this highlight of her life. But something happened right before she disappeared that seemed to change her drastically. Now, in March of 2016, Chelsea's biological mother passed away, and it hit her like a ton of bricks. It seems like a situation where her parents just weren't stable enough to take care of her. It's not that they didn't love her or care for her. They wanted better for her, and I think that's why she was with her aunt, but she was still really close to her biological mother from what it seems. And as soon as this happened, she ended up being plagued with mental illness herself. I haven't seen if she struggled with this before her biological mother passed away, but from what I'm gathering and the way that it's worded, she didn't struggle with mental illness up until this point. It was so bad that she ended up checking herself into a psychiatric ward at Coney Island Hospital, and I know for a fact at this point she was in fact diagnosed with bipolar depression. Now, I've also seen on a few other different sources, not many of them, that she was also potentially diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, but either way, she wasn't doing great. Her mother's death really affected her negatively. She ended up spending 2 weeks in the psychiatric ward, but she ended up making some friends along the way. She became pretty close to her female roommate. That's kind of a given. When you're in a situation like that and you're pretty much on lockdown for a decent amount of time, you're going to be close to the ones that you're surrounded by. But her roommate frequently had a male visitor named Justice, and all of them kind of formed this friendship. So even when Chelsea was discharged on April 15th, after that, she continued to hang out with them. But Rose, her mother, not her biological mother, her adoptive mother, and just to not confuse you, from here on, I will be referring to Rose as her mother. Rose said from here on, Chelsea was entirely different. According to Rose, Chelsea was typically a homebody. She wasn't one to go out a ton, but once she was out of the hospital and once she was introduced to this roommate and this man named Justice, she was going out constantly. But it quickly became something that was concerning. It wasn't necessarily like she made these new great friends that were pushing her to get out more and, maybe try to move past what she was struggling with. It seemed actually like the complete opposite. On the night of the 25th, Chelsea went out and she returned home the early hours of the 26th, and she was disoriented, like to the point that she was entirely unresponsive when her mom tried to talk to her. She had bruises on her arms. It was obvious that she had been drugged and been through some sort of trauma. So Rose knew something was wrong and she immediately drove her to the hospital. Now, this is where things are a little bit wishy-washy. From what I've seen, the only thing that has absolutely been confirmed is that Chelsea had opiates in her system when she was tested at the hospital. I don't know if a rape kit was done. I don't know, even if it came back positive, negative. I've seen it's been done, but then I've seen it hasn't been. I've seen it's come back positive, but then I've seen that it said there was no sexual assault. It's just kind of a lot, but Rose has said she strongly believes that Chelsea was drugged, robbed, and sexually assaulted. But unfortunately, once Chelsea was finally in a better state of mind and not, struggling from the effects of the drugs anymore, she didn't remember a single thing. She didn't remember anything about any sort of assault or robbery or taking drugs. She didn't even remember who she was with that night. So unfortunately, there were no answers as to what actually happened. So it's kind of all up for speculation, but Rose has pretty much decided what she believes happened. Like I've said, I'm not one to knock a mother's intuition, and she said she hadn't seen anything like this ever since she adopted Chelsea. Like, there had never been a time where she came home in this state. Rose also said that this was the first time ever that Chelsea had opiates in her system, but just a little over a week later on May 6th, Chelsea confronted her and asked her to check her into a rehabilitation center. So this is when I'm like a little bit confused, because if Chelsea's asking to be checked into drug rehabilitation and, a little over a week before she had opiates in her system and we don't really know what happened, I don't know how to feel. I don't know if she had any drug history prior to her mom passing away. The one thing I will say is that it's not uncommon for people struggling with mental health to self-medicate, so maybe this is something that was new since her mother's passing. But clearly, from her asking to be taken in somewhere, she was recreationally using drugs and had become addicted to them, which doesn't always take the longest time, but I feel like if you're at that point, it's probably been a while that you've been using them, but that is just purely my speculation. So Chelsea was struggling. Her mom had passed away. She was a single mom from what I've seen to a child under 1. She had apparently been using drugs to the point where she felt she needed to get help. And so Rose happily took her to Lutheran Hospital in Sunset Park in New York. Now, the plan was that she would be taken from that facility and she would be from there sent to St. John's Riverside in Yonkers. Now, it took at least an hour plus to get to this hospital, so Chelsea spent her time sitting in the van during transportation, texting her friends, and this is where things get kind of even more confusing. Despite asking to be taken to the rehab facility, she spent the whole time texting her friends and messaging her friends on social media saying that she needed to be picked up in Yonkers to get drugs. This is a perfect example of what addiction does to you. It's a cycle, a vicious, vicious cycle where you break down, you ask for help. You start to withdraw or you start to panic, and so you back out so you can go back to get drugs. It's just something that you get trapped in and you cannot get out of it, typically without some sort of help. She even messaged a friend saying, "I'm only doing this so I can get methadone." Now, I'm not sure what exactly she means about that. I don't think she would be given methadone in a drug rehabilitation center. I don't know if her plan the whole time was to just get away from maybe her mom to get drugs. I honestly don't know. Again, there's so many holes here. We don't know what she was thinking, so it's really all, again, just speculation. But once she arrived at the Yonkers Rehab Center, Chelsea immediately checked herself out. Now, I've actually seen that Chelsea did contact her mom about this. She called Rose and she said that she left, But from what I've seen, she said that she just was trying to find a different rehab center, that she was going to find another place the following day. I don't know if she said she was going to go back home. I don't know if Rose was expecting her or what exactly the situation was. But her messages told an entirely different story than what it appears she told her mom. So apparently she had been in contact with the roommate, the female roommate from the Coney Island hospital, and she was messaging her basically asking for drugs, asking for a connection, and the roommate messaged her back and said, and I quote, "Listen, my boys got dope. Let's pick you up. We got everything." Now, Justice, who was the male friend that always came in to visit the roommate when they were in the Coney Island hospital, he ended up being the one to come and pick Chelsea up in Yonkers. I've also seen that he even texted Rose confirming this and saying that he brought her back from Yonkers to Brooklyn, dropped her off on 68th Street in Sunset Park. Now, I wish I knew if he mentioned where she was going, who she planned on meeting, what exactly she said she was going to do. I also would love to know if this was even confirmed by police, because it doesn't seem very clear online. When you look at pretty much all of the sources when it comes to this case, and you look at their sites, like who exactly they got this information from, 9 times out of 10, it just says family. So authorities don't seem to be giving up anything. Either way, I have no idea if this text message was confirmed by police, if this location was confirmed by police. I don't even know if he spoke to police himself or if he just spoke to Rose. I also find it interesting that there's absolutely no mention of the female roommate. Now, tell me if I'm wrong, but I look very deep into someone's language, and from her message to me, it seemed like she was saying she was going to be there. She was going to ride along to get Chelsea. She said, "My boys got dope, let's pick you up." As in, like, let's pick you up, like, we're coming. But I see absolutely no mention of this female anywhere, and I also can't find her name anywhere, which I think is weird because there's a lot of other names dropped, but hers is completely silent. Now, from what I've seen, when Justice dropped her off, it was, I believe, around 11:45 p.m., give or take maybe a little bit of time. And then just hours later at 1:45 a.m. on May the 7th, a friend said that they saw Chelsea leave La Floridita Club at 5th Avenue and Sunset Park. So this is technically the last time anyone says they've seen her. Again, I have no idea if this is an actual confirmed sighting. Authorities haven't really put anything out into the media, but this is what's listed on all of the databases online. Now, she apparently was a very regular person to visit this establishment. All of the waitresses knew her. They all recognized her, were willing to talk to anyone, and they said that she typically sat at a corner table with a DJ and would talk to him a lot. Now, according to the friend that saw her leave, again, I don't know how close this person was, kind of up in the air, she left with a man named Antonio. I don't know if Antonio is the DJ that she was always seen talking to or if this is a completely different person, but the one thing I do know is that authorities themselves have stated that Antonio and Justice knew each other. So maybe if this is a situation where they were trying to get Chelsea drugs, Justice was just the one kind of taking her where she needed to go, dropped her off. She waited for this person named Antonio that maybe had the drugs, and that's what was happening here. But again, we're unsure. I don't even know if authorities have questioned Antonio. But this is literally as far as it goes. I know nothing about the investigation, which drives me nuts because typically that's where majority of my video kind of comes from, is analyzing the investigation and what authorities think and what they have done and haven't done. But unfortunately, I have none of that. There is so little information online. I just have random snippets of things from here and there. I think what probably happened here, and John Lorden mentioned this in his video on Chelsea Cobo, when you have someone that's struggling with drug addiction or mental health, the media kind of writes them off. They take these stories and they seem fascinating and they throw them out to the public, but the second any sort of drug is mentioned, everyone's like, oh, they went on some, drunken binge, or they went and got high and died in a ditch. Like, horrible, horrible assumptions are made about this person and what happened to them. It's all very generalized, and then the cases are just thrown out. And in my personal opinion, these cases need an equal amount of attention, if not a lot more, because there's such a high chance something horrific happened to them. These people that struggle with mental health, that struggle with drug addiction, they are vulnerable. Like some of the most vulnerable people. Addiction is a disease. Mental illness is a disease. I feel like way too many people treat it as if it's some sort of choice. Obviously, taking drugs, yes, when you do it the first time, you're kind of making that choice. But when it comes to addiction, that is something you cannot control. Chelsea was clearly a very vulnerable person in an incredibly vulnerable situation. I'm so concerned that because of this, she was so easily taken advantage of. If you think about it, from what I've seen, she lived a relatively calm life before her mother passed away. And then in the 2 months between her mother passing away and her disappearance, it is like the fastest downhill spiral. And there's no telling where her mind was in all of this. Obviously, one of the biggest theories because of this is that she was put into sex trafficking. Because of the drugs, because of the setup of the situation, because of the location of where she was in New York City. It's so possible. Drugs are a huge part of trafficking. Big cities are a huge part of trafficking. When it comes to New York City, it's so big, people don't know what's going on around them half the time. It's a very big hub of trafficking, especially when it comes to forced sex work. This new crowd very well could have thrown her in with the wrong people that saw how easy of a target she was in the mindset that she was in that time. If you've ever been in a state where you are under a lot of stress and grief and you're struggling with your mental health and you're struggling with drugs, you don't even know what's happening around you half the time. You are just doing what you can to survive and not feel terrible constantly. You want to numb everything. And so she likely wouldn't have seen the signs of someone preying on her. They are the last people she was known to have been with. Both Justice and Antonio have ties to Coney Island, and there have even been sightings in this area. According to a sex worker in the area, Chelsea was identified by photo, and she was seen around 16th Street, 5th Street, Mermaid Street, and Surf Avenue. So it's not just one sighting. She's been seen walking the streets at different locations in Coney Island. It was also heard that she was possibly with a man named Vladimir, and right now authorities are trying to get in contact with him. There's also a PI on the case that's trying to figure out who this man is. Oftentimes, when it comes to human trafficking, sex trafficking, all of that, women are lured in many different ways. They're sometimes lured in by women that are disguised as their friends, because sometimes it's easier for women to trust other women before they're going to trust another man. There's also usually men that will come in and make all these promises, guarantee you all these things, like quickly gain your trust by giving you things. It's very possible that she could have been offered drugs to help her mental state by this roommate, by Justice at the Coney Island Hospital. It's interesting that she's in there, stuck in there for 2 weeks with these people, and she comes out and is all of a sudden strung out on drugs, showing up disoriented, bruised, robbed, potentially sexually assaulted. When it comes to trafficking and all of that, control is the biggest aspect. They need to find a way to rope you in, and one of the biggest ways they do it is through drugs and promises. If they offered her these drugs, they know she's going to take them. They keep offering it as a friendly gift or, to help out. She's going to keep coming back. If she comes back enough, she's going to be hooked on them and she will never go away. She's going to want to keep getting them. And that right there is a perfect situation to take control of someone. It takes one time of them maybe giving her too much and she blacks out, something happens, that they finally have full control over her, and she's in a position that she can't get out of at that point. It is such a huge possibility that she is being held against her will, or that she's being drugged so much that she literally doesn't even know the difference. And when you have mental illness and you add it to that equation, and extreme grief and loss and you add it to that equation, It is such a dangerous mixture. Now, there's obviously other possibilities that maybe she was so depressed. Maybe she was struggling so hard when it came to her mother's passing and coping with it and understanding it that maybe she was suicidal, or maybe she felt like she just didn't have a place anymore, or that she was just upset and maybe she did, take too many drugs and overdose somewhere, or maybe she just ran off and doesn't want to come back because she doesn't know how to handle her grief. And that is a possibility. That's not something that, in my opinion, should be ruled out, because I heard something the other day on a show that really stuck out to me. People will do out of character things in extreme situations. So I always try so hard to look at someone's character and what they would typically do, but we don't know what people will do in extreme situations. And this could be one of those circumstances, maybe. But I will say, she loved her son. And after losing a parent and knowing what that feels like, I don't think she would ever wish that on her son either. Now, there's also the possibility that maybe she just took too many drugs. Maybe these people left her on her own and it was just someone else's crime of opportunity. That's also absolutely possible, but at this time, from the information we have, that's just not what everything is pointing towards. Now, New York City has since started a Missing Persons Day, which is held on the 4th of May, which is, interestingly enough, just days before her anniversary of her disappearance. And since starting it in 2014, it's helped identification of 9+ people, missing people, through getting DNA swabs from those attending. Now, the companies basically come and they take DNA samples for free, and it's put into the systems like NamUs and things like that, hoping to get a match. Now, honestly, I suggest to all of you guys, especially if you have any missing loved ones anywhere in your family line, go and have this done. It's obviously not free everywhere. There are times where, these companies obviously charge, but I've seen a pattern in the past few years at these Missing Persons Day events that there will be these events where they want you to come and give your DNA. I think there was just one in Virginia a couple of months ago, I think near Virginia Beach. Just look up your area, and if you have a missing loved one, definitely take advantage of something like this, because there are people that have gone unidentified that have been found, and we can't possibly know every missing person that's being found all around the world, all around the United States at any given time. And as much as we search, we might not even know how to specifically search for something like that. And that's how these different companies and these different systems connect the dots. Those missing from New York City and all of its boroughs account for 1/3 of all open missing persons cases in the entire state of New York. And Chelsea is one of the huge number. I think it's around 600, almost 700 people. And in a busy city like New York City, it's so easy to be overlooked, especially given her circumstances. Chelsea had apparently written Rose a poem on her 40th birthday, and it was 40 reasons why she loved her. And Rose said one line stuck out, and it is, "When I lose something, I know you will be on the search." And that is absolutely true. And when she received this on her 40th birthday, she had no idea how literal it was. Rose has put up 12,000 flyers. She's offered up $10,000 as a reward. She has whiteboards covering her entire living room walls. They look like something out of a TV show. It looks like when you walk into a police station. She's got the whiteboards with the entire timeline and any tips she hears and things she puts together. It's all over these boards. She also runs a Facebook page to keep up awareness and keep the word out about Chelsea and keep her picture out there. She is constantly updating to this day. And typically at this point, I see Facebook pages kind of fall silent unless other people kind of take all the weight off of whoever's running it. But she is constantly posting, and she's not just posting for Chelsea, she's posting for other missing women and men that just aren't getting the type of coverage that they need. And the other thing she's doing, which is the big kind of announcement and thing that I really wanted you guys to help me out with, there is hopefully going to be a podcast called The Find, and this is the next step for Rose at trying to get the information out there about Chelsea. So the Find is going to be a podcast that basically dives into Chelsea's disappearance and the things Rose has gone through since then and the things she's trying to do to help. They're really trying to keep her name out there, but they need help. They need money to hire a lawyer. You guys have no idea the stuff that goes into creating a podcast of this type of magnitude. You have to have a lawyer. You have to have insurance. There's so many different things. And there's a GoFundMe where they are taking donations to hopefully raise enough money to go ahead and get this podcast off the ground. They list every single thing out on the GoFundMe that the money is going towards. They're very open and honest about this. And honestly, if we all donated $1, you guys, do you know how much money we could help raise for them to get this podcast off the ground? I have seen firsthand how much YouTube channels and missing persons podcast and Facebook pages and Instagram accounts and Twitter pages, I've seen firsthand how they can solve a case, how they can progress a case beyond whatever could have been done with authorities and just the local public alone. It is so important to support causes like this. It is so important to support people trying to get the word out in a bigger way, the biggest way possible. I'm going to take whatever money I get from any merchandise sales for the rest of this month. So throughout the rest of September, anything I make off of merchandise sales is going straight to donations towards this podcast. I'm going to make a personal donation. I would love to see you guys at least do whatever you can, whether that's $1 or whether it's way more than that. Obviously, I will leave that up to you, but these people need support. And if the case when it comes to Chelsea is trafficking, or even if it's not necessarily like high ring trafficking, it's just someone holding her against her will and maybe forcing her into sex work. People knowing about this is everything. People recognizing her face and her story, that could change everything. If she's out there walking the streets, it's not like she's necessarily being hidden away. You know, people could pass by her on the sidewalk. People could, come in contact with her and not even know it. There's so many reasons why this could be such a huge thing for Chelsea's case. On that note, Chelsea was wearing a New York Yankees jacket with a blue chest and gray sleeves, and she had on a black hooded jacket underneath of that and a black shirt. She had on gray sweatpants with a white stripe down the side and chestnut colored Uggs. She typically wore a silver chain necklace with an Italian horn, and she also wore a silver ring with a sideways Roman Catholic cross on it, and she typically was carrying a black small shoulder bag. It was by Coach, and she would have had a couple of different cloth bags with her as well. She has a tattoo on her left front hip that says she flies with her own wings. She has her left nostril pierced, her ears pierced, and her cartilage pierced. As I said, there is a private investigator on the case, and he seems to be working diligently. I think he is an old captain from the New York City Police Department. There are 2 GoFundMes. There is an original GoFundMe, and I will have that link down below as well. And all of that money goes towards, I believe, things like flyers and paying for the PI. I have seen that it doesn't look very active anymore. I don't know if they are updating it, or maybe she's just updating through Facebook. So I would definitely look into that before you donate to that one. But I do know the one for the podcast is very, very active, and they are still trying to raise money for that. So if you can do something, even if it's just share this video, share the story through your own words, share Chelsea's missing persons poster, that would mean the world. She's got a little boy that misses her, and he knows about her. He has been raised so far to understand that she's just not here right now, and hopefully she will be back. He needs her. Rose is desperately trying to find answers for where Chelsea is, what happened to her. She's one BA mom that's literally flipping the whole world trying to search everywhere for her. Please leave kind comments down in the comment section down below. Leave encouraging comments. Go follow the Facebook page so you can maybe see any updates or when they may need something. Maybe go and help. She shares so many other missing persons cases to try to get them out there, so that's another good thing as well. But yeah, on that note, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and go. I want to thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to Chelsea's story. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already so we can hopefully bring them home together. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.